And tonight we are talking about empaths. Okay, so a few weeks ago we talked about narcissists, and then we talked about like different types of abilities people have, but we didn't really talk about empaths and how that plays a role. Um, Overall, everyone should have a little bit of empathy, but that is not necessarily the case. And there's a very thin line they're finding out between empaths and narcissists and psychopaths. So we're going to talk about all that when we come back. You are listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. I'm Amanda, and tonight we're talking about empaths and everything that kind of goes along with that, right? So first, this segment is brought to you by opalsanctumemporium.com, where you can find your little must-have tools, decorations, accessories to make your space a little bit more magical. So let's start with what is empathy to begin with, right? Because we hear that tossed around a lot. So what is it? And it's the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings in a situation from their point of view, rather than your own. And that is different from sympathy. They want to make sure you know that. It is different from sympathy, where one is moved by the thoughts and feelings of another, but maintains an emotional distance. Okay? So does that make sense? So one is where you basically can put yourself in that person's shoes. The other one is where you can see it happening. You can't put your shoes or imagine yourself in their shoes or whatever, but you can see it happening. You can understand how it could be uncomfortable or, distressful in some shape, form, or fashion. All right. So a person that is empathic, of course, kind of takes that a step further in that they physically, mentally, emotionally are feeling what someone is going through. Sometimes to the point where, like, they can't leave their house, or like it overcomes them completely emotionally. It's both a blessing and a curse, basically. Okay, because I would like to say we'd all like to be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and truly understand what that person is going to. But as we talk a little bit more tonight, you will see why that's not always possible. And to a certain extent, no one is completely empathetic or completely an empath. Okay. So it gives an example here. And I know a lot of people who react this way, and it's not that they don't feel sympathy. They just can't empathize with the person. And so they're like, okay, so you've had a really hectic week. You were reading your favorite book. The phone rings and your friend is panicking because they just lost their job. And so your answer is, don't worry about it. You knew the company was having problems anyway. You knew this was coming. You can't really be upset about it. And so you don't really get an answer. The person doesn't really say anything. May possibly hang up with you, may get mad, may yell, may curse, whatever the case may be. And you're like, okay, well, I didn't say anything wrong, right? Like, all of this was knowledge. And it's not that. It's that they weren't calling you for information they already knew. They were calling you to have a empathetic ear. They wanted someone to, like, gather them up and, kind of help feel it with them. Okay? And that's not what that person did. And so we are, even empaths, sometimes take this approach, especially when they are burned out, overstimulated, and they just kind of become numb, right? So what happens when that numbness doesn't really go away, when it just kind of stays there? Like, you completely kind of block that off. So we're going to get into that as well. someone who is sympathetic is those are your silver lining people. There's always a silver lining. Oh, well, this could have happened, or it could have been worse, or, well, don't worry about it. Something better will come. And it feels like they're blowing the situation off, or it's not as serious as you might think it is. Me and my oldest son have this problem all the time because he is sympathetic, but he is not always empathetic. And so even in his own situation, he's like, well, blah, blah, blah. He's the silver lining kid, but it makes him seem disconnected and kind of cold and kind of weird in some ways. Everyone who knows him knows that he is the most loving person you can possibly meet. But there are times when he's just like, yeah, you know. And so they started doing some research about 15 years ago. And this is one of the things that came out of the whole Human Genome Project. The company that synced up with this university was 23andMe. Okay? So they did basically DNA testing, and they did a series of questions. They have come up with these questions, and I'll give you what it's called later. There may be a way you can take it online for free or something like that. But it was to gauge empathy and how sympathetic someone was, and kind of figure out whether there was a genetic proponent to this. And it turns out there is. Of course, this also explains why, since there's a thin line, why narcissists and empaths seem to always be related in some shape, form, or fashion. And I mean related as in siblings, or, parent and child, grandparent and grandchild. There's always some kind of like family combination. You normally don't find a house full of empaths, or a house full of narcissists. You have on extremes, or at least we thought they were extremes. Like we thought these were polar opposites, right? Turns out they aren't. They are different sides of the exact same coin. The problem with people who are too empathetic is where the sympathetic person sees the silver lining of everything, right? And tries to push you to see that silver lining. The empathetic person, like a extreme empath, they not only feel your pain, they get down there and wallow in the hole with you, right? They are all in it. They are invested. They are 100% just as hurt, upset, happy, whatever the case may be, as you are. In fact, sometimes they seem to be more hurt by this than you are. And most of us have one person in our circle who is like that. Like you tell them something and they are 150% invested in the situation that you are going through. And it has nothing to do with them. You were just calling to kind of get an ear or something like that. But they have totally dived into the whole thing. And it's like, okay, well, you feel very strongly about it. So they tend to be the person people turn to all the time. Unfortunately, also seem to be the people who don't know when to say, I've gotten my load, I don't have any more spoons, whatever the case may be, and I can't do this right now. They tend to just take it on and take it on and take it on and take it on. So there are 3 kinds of empathy. Okay. Cognitive. Simply knowing how the person feels and what they might be thinking. Sometimes called perspective taking. Someone's upset. But it keeps you distant. You can't really get there and feel it. So the next part of that, cognitively, now the situation is going on, right? would be the emotional portion. Okay, can you emotionally connect with this issue? And so with that, you feel physically along with the other person, as though the emotions were contagious. And I guess the only thing I can kind of associate this with is someone else yawning and you yawning, or someone else laughing uncontrollably and all of a sudden you start laughing uncontrollably and you don't even know what they were laughing about, but you can't stop it. Imagine that though, with every feeling, with everything, right? From all sides, from all people. That would be someone who's like a serious emotional empath. And so then you have the third one, which is compassion. Are you compassionate about it? So you understand what happened, you're feeling what happened, but then how do you react to it, right? And so this type of empathy, they're saying, you understand the person's predicament, you feel it with them, and are spontaneously moved to help. Like, not only are you in it, now you got to do something about it. We're going to figure this out together. We're going to, like, it has nothing to do with you, but you're all in. Okay? And so, if you think about the fact that it takes all three of those for, like, a true empath to, like, feel it, then you understand where some of those disconnects can be, right? Because let's take everything that's going on with our world right now. COVID, Delta virus. So I can't say all people, but I would like to say the majority. I'm scared to even say that at this point, at least in the U.S. I don't know. Dave, what do you think? The majority of people believe COVID is real at this point? Or are we about half and half?
It's
maybe 50-50?
Maybe.
So maybe in the U.S. I know people are listening in other countries, so your countries might be doing better than the U.S. Probably everybody's, well, not everybody. There are some countries that are doing worse than the U.S. But
you know what it is? The people that promoted the vaccinations that are now telling us that we have to wear masks. Our governor.
I can't.
I don't know what to say.
There is nothing to say. There really isn't.
And then everybody's upset that the mayor called stupid.
It's
pick a side. Are we supposed to get vaccinated? Are we supposed to wear masks now because the vaccination was bullshit? Eventually, what's that old rumor? F you, F me the first time, F you every time after that. Get me once, every time after that.
Oh, fool me once, shame on you.
There
fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah, I'm not shaming you no more.
Well, okay, so science major.
The numbers?
So, no, not anymore.
Why?
Because I'm a volunteer on the front line, and I get those numbers sent to me daily, sent to my inbox daily from our higher up, and it becomes depressing. So no, I don't know. I no longer look at the numbers.
And you don't even know if they're real numbers. You want to believe them. I know, because you're on the front line. I get it. You want to think everything you're doing is right, but if you're elected officials, and I'm assuming they get the numbers before us, let's just hope that.
I hope so.
Okay, they get there to get the numbers saying vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Now they got new numbers saying vaccination might not work. Put your mask back on. How do you feel about that?
But see, I don't think that's what. To me, that's not what they're saying. Science major.
Okay, go ahead.
Science major. So science major, think of it as the flu. Okay? You get the flu shot, but that shot is last year's version of the flu. Because they didn't have this year's variant of it.
But so isn't the flu every other year flu shot?
No.
Every year?
Every year.
Okay.
So they incubate last year's strand and they give you that. But if a new strand comes along, guess what you still get? The flu. Whether you had the shot or not.
So this would mean like all those people that said, hey, this is just an upgraded version of the flu, were right? That'll make you dig.
I won't say it's an upgraded version of the flu, but it seems to be moving the same. And I mean, a lot of viruses do, right?
So if you take this new vaccination that's going to come out after we get this mask wording,
mm-hmm.
Do you feel confident that you're not going to take another vaccination next year?
No, I believe this is going to be like a flu shot.
Okay. So why are we panicking? Nobody panicked about the flu last week.
But see, well, clearly anybody got the flu because everybody was locked down.
Nobody got the flu because everybody had the flu. They gave them COVID.
So I don't know. So here's my thought on it. Something's going on, right? There's a virus out here, whether it's man-made, jumped lines, whatever it did is there. Okay? And I'm at the point where I think about 50-50 people believe that it's real. The other 50% do not. Okay? So, of course, you do what you can to protect yourself. Now, we're always going to have those people that are like, well, if I get it, I get it. Whatever. Okay. That's good for you. Right? Everybody had to do what was best for them. And I'll be honest. And this is going to sound horrible. Here's where the more callous side of me comes out. I don't honestly care if people get the vaccination or not. You know what I'm about to say, don't you?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel a little bit like George Carlin, where I think we should start just removing some things and just letting survival of the fittest happen, because we have definitely dumbed down the human gene pool. Just saying. There are some people who should not be reproducing, and if there weren't things like safety belts, helmets, that kind of stuff, would not be. So I think maybe we should just remove all the warnings and let some people just go for what they know, and maybe we can get this figured out. Bang.
Hurry up, wrap it up, save yourself.
I'm not trying to save myself. I'm serious.
Our number is 678-383-4378. You don't call in and comment. Next segment, 678-383-4378. All right,
y'all listen to What Up Witches. We will be right back here on BFAM 109. Welcome back to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. So, we went there to say,
she went there.
That cognitively, sponsor for this segment. This one is brought to us by Big Cheese Botanica. It's your source for candles, incense, herbs, and other ingredients to make all those magical things happen. So, cognitively, even if you don't believe the virus is real, you should be able to understand the people's fear, right? You should be able to empathize with that.
Facts.
Even if you think it's crazy, how many fears do people have that are a little extreme? Okay? So, you should at least be able to say, okay, I understand that you're scared of it, right? Emotionally, though, you probably can't connect with them, right? If you don't believe it's real, you can understand them being scared, but you can't emotionally get in there with them, because in the back of your head, you're thinking they're dumb, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have much compassion for this person? No. So now let's take the other 50% that believe the virus is real, okay? So, cognitively, they understand your fear, and they may have that same fear. I say may because having had COVID, and I don't wish it on anyone, it was horrible, and having lost people to COVID close to me, I also realized that those people were not in the best of health, and that the flu or pneumonia could have done the same thing. So I've done what I can to protect myself and take care of myself, knowing that I have some respiratory issues going on after having a bout with pneumonia a few years back. And I make the best choices for myself. But I don't force those choices on anyone else. You take care of you, I take care of me. Okay? But if you cognitively understand it, and then emotionally you're like, okay, well, yeah, I feel the same. I'm here with you. How deep do you take that? I feel the same, though. Right? Do you feel the same and you are feeling their pain, you're feeling their fear, you're just as scared as they are? Or are you just like, well, I feel your pain or whatever, but I still don't think I need to do anything to negate what's going on, right? And then you have those that are like, oh no, I'm getting my shot, I'm wearing my mask, I'm 6 feet this, I'm going to work from home, I'm going to do all these things. And so then those people are in there with you, like, let's solve this together. Let's be honest. If America has proved anything at this point, we do. The majority of us do not have that third step there. A lot don't have the second step, but most don't have the third. What's wrong, David? He is over here turning red.
I mean, I'm supposed to be just producing here. I'm trying not to laugh at your words and not making it easy.
I'm sorry. He's turning so red, y'all.
Tell me you don't know somebody who can't make the second step. That's what it is.
That we don't know somebody? Oh, we all should know somebody.
Yeah, I was choking over the fact that I know so many people.
But we know, at this point, we all know people who can't make the first step. So clearly, as a people, we are lacking empathy, which is why people who are empaths and empathetic are so overwhelmed. Because in their head, the rest of us are nuts. Now, yes, I am empathic. But here's where another study took place. And this is one of those boats where I kind of fall into. They took a whole bunch of physicians and medical assistants. And they realized that the more they trained them and the more they interacted with patients, the less empathetic those medical people got. And if we look at it, it's a defense mechanism, right? If you have to go and make hard choices, medical choices, and help people who may or may not make it, at some point you have to detach. I feel that I developed that as a teacher because I could not be empathetic to every student in their plight. I would be crying every single day, every single hour. Because if you only knew the amount of students that are homeless, that are hungry, that are being abused, the choices we have to make during the day as to what to do and what not to do and how to help and when to stay out of it. Eventually you get to the point where you're like, okay, I see it. I recognize it. And it's my job to report it to blah, blah, blah. But I can't jump down in this hole with you because there's 30 other kids depending on me. And I can't do anything about it because I got my own stuff over here with 12 hours worth of work I got to grade for y'all later. So I've got to turn that over to someone else and not really be that invested in it. And so that is where, as a society, your occupation may turn some of that off. Seeing that it is genetic, some people may just not be born with that. I said it jokingly, but I was so serious. So for those who know me, they know that I used to teach, know that I used to work with children with extreme behavior issues. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love working with those children. They were absolutely hilarious. And a lot of times what they said made complete sense. But they lacked empathy. And that scares people when it comes to smaller children lacking empathy. Because everyone thinks that the kid is going to be like, oh, they hurt themselves, we have to help. Instead of kind of laughing and giggling in the corner that this person has hurt themselves. And so that's the two sides of empathy. Do you jump in and do you want to help this person? Or do you feel what they're feeling and find joy and pleasure in what they're feeling? So that brings in a whole nother layer, right? How many of us know people who they absolutely know how someone is feeling and they are loving it? Absolutely eating it up. At one point, I was seeing this guy who was a DA in another state, and he gets flat out said that there are some times when he was in those rooms that there was nothing there. Those people didn't feel sorry for what they did or anything. Then there were times when he said, oh, they felt sorry for what they did. They knew what they were doing, but they liked it. Or, something even more disturbing. So hear those layers and layers and layers of being an empath and what the end result of that can be. Okay. You were trying to remember something, aren't you?
Oh, I've got a lot of notes up there.
Are you making note of people in your life that you might need to check on?
Yeah. 3 of them.
So it basically, after doing all of these DNA and questionnaires and all this kind of stuff, they figured out that empathy does not come naturally for most people. And in our society, the way everything is fast paced, and yeah, that something happened to that person, but you've got to keep going, right? I mean, let's be honest. The whole if you die today, they'll have your replacement in before your funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people don't even have time to mourn, get over anything. They're forced to keep moving. And so eventually, as a society, what happens? We lose touch with that. It's almost like being empathetic or being an empath is only reserved for those who actually have the time and capacity to actually go through all those feelings and feel them, and then actually be called to action and be able to actually help. Because who has time for that, right? Think about how many times you pass the beggar on the corner, or in front of the store. How many times you actually call help?
I have a beggar story, though.
Okay.
I used to work at AT&T out at Norcross on Jimmy Carter Boulevard, my exit. And I noticed this guy there, and I'm eating my lunch going back to work. And he's on the exit. Mm-hmm. And I had my granola bar left. Mm-hmm. And I rolled my window down to give him my granola bar. Said, we'll work for food. Give him a granola bar. And he says, you don't have any cash on you? And when I say he said this, and I don't want to like label people, not in a beggar's voice. Okay? And I'm like, what? You don't want this? You see that Mercedes over here? I'm on my lunch break. I'm trying to make a little money. Let's go. Move on. All right, now, Whoa. How do you separate beggars like that? Because begging is a business.
Is it bad?
Yes.
I almost don't even want to say this on camera, but we're going to assume that no one is listening who does this. So I look for like key things.
Like what?
So if you're homeless, right?
Yeah.
You can go and get a shower. You can go and get clean clothes. You can go and get that. Shoes are hard to come by.
Facts. If you got clean shoes on, you're not getting
right. If you got on shoes that are nicer than
this guy was beggar up and down.
Babe.
I'm with you.
You know, so I
stereotyped it.
I do. I kind of look at the shoes and I'm like, all right, he probably is homeless or whatever. And I mean, you can tell when people are
Why do you have to do that, though?
Mentally disturbed. Because you got people driving Lexuses.
Isn't that sad,
who'd rather beg and probably make more than anybody else, you know, make $2,000-$3,000.
I wonder how much, and I would never do this because I can't imagine what you feel like when you go home. How much can you make on your lunch hour at the exit ramp?
I don't know. I think the funniest sign I ever saw, I was working, this was probably 20 years ago. I was working downtown on Spring Street, and got ready to get on at, 10th Street, Georgia Tech, over in that area. Mm-hmm. And the guy was standing there with a sign that said, "Why lie? I need a beer." I totally gave him money.
I mean, I would have given that than anything.
Like, totally gave him money. It's like, dude, I feel you. But, yeah, we have to do that. And it's unfortunately because the people who do that on their lunch break are depending on there to be enough empathetic people that make it through all these levels, because you have to be in the compassionate, want to do something and make it happen in order for that to work, right? Mm-hmm. Because you've got to, recognize that there's a problem, feel for that person enough to actually reach in your wallet or whatever, pull out that money and hand it over to that person. So they are literally preying on empathetic people.
Got nothing.
So there's one of those things. If you see that enough in that area, at what point does it turn off to that specific thing? They also found that while people can be extremely empathetic and be empaths, sometimes cultural differences prevent them from making it through those 3 steps. So what they found was that the lack of understanding of how a culture works or functions, or how a people or a society works in relation or in contrast to yours, diminishes the amount that you can empathize. We see this all the time with watching the news. We see a war going on in a quote-unquote third world country. I'm really starting to question the United States not being a third world country at this point, but hey. But we see this.
I got nothing right Another good one. Another really good one.
We see this, right?
Yeah.
It is so removed.
Unfortunately.
But we can't imagine, most of us cannot imagine, bombs dropping on our heads. Wondering if this, if it's safe to go to the store, that type of thing. Not in the capacity that military is having a war right over you. Wars are far, far away, right? They're not here. They're always somewhere else. So we recognize that the war is going on, but we can't really get in there and emotionally feel it with them. And we aren't called to say anything about it or want to make a change about it. The people who are the ones who you see on the corner still protesting wars in the Middle East or whatever the case may be, or invading this, or those people are there. The rest of us are kind of like, and I'll admit, I'm one of those people. I'm just like, I don't have the capacity to deal with anything over there when we got so much going on over here. That is one of those things that I've blocked out. So we can be selectively empathic about things.
Travel's down.
Yeah.
People don't want to go nowhere. Everything's so messed up here. They don't want to go nowhere else either.
Well, and where do you go?
It's messed up.
You can't get into the UK.
I mean, everybody's gates are closed. Everybody's youths are going crazy.
Well, I mean, you can go, but you got to go. You can only go if you're vaccinated. People don't want to get vaccinated, so they can't go anywhere. And then if you go over there and something happens and you get locked down, how do you get home?
You're stuck. Yeah, go ahead and go somewhere even if you're vaccinated.
There was the cruise ship. Did you see that?
No.
So there was, I can't remember the name of the cruise ship, so I'm not going to say it, but basically 2 or 3 people wound up testing positive for COVID. Wherever they docked next, those people had to get off and make their own way home. Wow. So they were quarantined from the rest of the ship until they docked. Ushered off the boat and said, find a private, they said they found private routes home.
Royal Caribbean.
So that doesn't make me want to get on a cruise ship not knowing what's going to happen. You can't quarantine me in a room. I literally got to find my own way home after I paid for the cruise.
Hey, you ready for this?
What?
Guess where they docked and had to be let off?
Where?
Juneau, Alaska.
Oh my God.
It was a 7-day Norwegian crew. So,
at least this summer.
Those 6...
I'd hate to be in Alaska in the middle of winter.
Those 6 people had to be let off in Juneau and find their way home.
See, there's my I'm at silver lining person sometimes. At least it's summer.
No.
Right.
No.
But you've already paid all this money for this cruise. And how far did you have to fly to get to where you
didn't even make it to the good countries.
Where was it from? Where did it originate at? I'm just curious.
Keep talking. I gotta get back to it.
All right, so here's some things that you probably already figured, right? Research that they've done. On average, women are going to be more empathetic than men. You're going to have more females that are empathetic, and therefore, by default, more female empaths. Okay, than men. Autistic people score lower on those because they struggle with cognitive empathy. Their affective empathy may be intact. Their compassion, if you've ever seen someone with autism who is very, they have specialties and they are very aware, emotionally connected, and compassionate about that thing. But it may be something that just doesn't click for them. And it doesn't make them bad or narcissistic or anything like that. It is just the way their brain deals with that information. And keeps from being overwhelmed. So
it was the third stop, and now they had 3 people there, which has now been raised to 16 people there. The boat has not left yet.
Oh, goodness.
They had 2 stops before that. There's 2 in Ketchikan, and I don't even know the other name, and 1 in the first stop. So
now
there was a third stop, has 16, and the boat has not left yet.
So 16 more people have to find their own way home.
It's 19 total at 3 different stops.
See?
And the boat has not left yet. It's still in Juneau.
Yeah, see, now who wants to go on a cruise now? So this is why travel is down. Who wants to do that?
And they can't find the person in Ketchikan.
What, they get off the boat and say, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore? How do you lose the whole person? On a cruise ship. Like, I've been on a cruise. They scan you like every getting on a... Never mind, I'm not even going to go there. But anyway. So, they've also done this examining empathy in identical twins and non-identical twins. And it turns out that identical twins, you still may not get 2 people that are empaths. So, they also figured out that since sex plays a role, or gender plays a role, then hormone influences such as like being pregnant or not may also have somewhat of a weigh-in on how much of an empath someone can be at a time. All right. We need to go on break real quick, so we will be right back. You're listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. Okay. I'll do sponsor and then some. Hey everyone, welcome back to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. This segment is brought to us by Brandy's Hair Braiding Lounge. Check out her styles. She has a surprise one for me, so I don't know when we're going to do this, but I'm totally surprised by whatever she's doing. We will see. I totally trust her. David said we have some comments, and
we had one of the Facebook users said, yeah, most beggars these days are scammers, backpackers who choose to beg. They aren't built the same as the ones back in the day. They travel from city to city on the road. So now let me ask you this.
So this is a new, like, European backpacking stuff you don't have rich parents?
Your actual name is called a backpacker. You're not a beggar. You're a backpacker.
Okay, but
you don't have a house. You've chosen to live off the land, but you need to stop at these exits and get a little cash so you can get some money.
So 20 years ago, backpackers were the rich kids that had mommy and daddy sending them money as they backpack across Europe. I'm confused. This is just the way we're living life now? So we're just professional nomads, I guess? I'm confused.
That's pretty much what I would say. That's pretty much a nomad.
A professional nomad?
Yeah, just traveling around the world, which I'm not against it.
I'm not either. I'm against the begging.
I'm not against you begging right there. Just don't tell people, we'll work for food. No, you won't. You're fitting to leave and go to the next day. Say what it is.
Right.
Traveling across the world, use a little money for a burger.
But there's people who RV across the road and they stop in different places and work for a little while and then keep moving. So these people,
there's a lot of people that don't like the system. They want to live off the grid.
So get paid under the table.
Yeah.
Like get a waitressing job or something. I'm confused.
Then Lynn called in. She says, I was in college during the Gulf War. I was glued to the TV and I was so upset about someone asked me if I had a brother or something over there. And I was like, no. I didn't understand how people were partying and not caring when others were being shot at. Yes, girl, I have all 3 all my life. There is no help for me.
Don't say that, Wynn. But I know her, and she is definitely an empath. Like,
she
through and through.
An empath. And a cool chick.
But absolutely the sweetest heart. And I love having her as someone I know in my circle. Like I said, it doesn't... I also... And they don't really mention this, but I find that people who have friends as empaths tend to protect those people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are viciously protective of that person and their feelings and letting them go through it. If you are an empath and you don't have a friend that is there for you like that, you need to get one because they are absolutely awesome. So then it goes into when we see something happening to others, right? They thought it just kind of activated your brain as, oh, well, look, okay. But it turns out we actually kind of mirror what we're feeling. So this is one of those things where people are like, well, empaths take all the emotions in, right? They take in everything from everyone else. Energy works two ways. And I have left a few groups that were for empaths and people who were more sensitive because they're constantly saying, oh, well, people, basically being empathic is harmless. No, not necessarily. If you can take all that energy in, you can also force all that emotion out. And so there's another side to that, right? There's just layers and layers of this onion. Okay. So then becomes, okay, it's almost like catching the emotions of others. Okay, so now this person has taken in all of this. So what happens when they bring that back? Is it that another empathic person is pulling that in, or are they sending that way? So there's one of those things that needs a little bit more science, I guess you can say, behind it on how that works. Y'all know me. I love when we can combine like the spiritual aspect with the science aspect. Like, it makes me happy. And so what people thought were, or what scientists thought, was that as soon as you get something that unifies you with the other person, connects you with their feelings or whatever, that you automatically put yourself in their shoes. So after all this, we know that is definitely not the case. So then you get a little bit deeper, and I'm going to kind of, we could probably talk about this literally for 3 or 4 episodes, honestly. But it goes into shared pain. So if someone who is feeling everyone else's pain and connecting with it and being called to action, eventually you're going to burn out. Eventually you're exhausted, right? Here's the funny thing. People like that, or people who deal with that, a lot of them will turn to drug and alcohol use. However, psychopaths are rarely drug and alcohol users. They are normally stone cold sober at all times. They're control freaks. They want to know exactly what is going on and everything, and they want to be able to. And I think people think, oh, well, they can't connect. No, they feel it. They just get a kick out of it. They get joy out of it. So, whereas, as Wen was saying, she couldn't understand how everyone was still functioning and everything, and why everyone wasn't feeling, this way and understanding it this way. They would be seriously sitting there and watching it and loving it and taking that in. So, one of my exes used to say, there is a little bit of a sadist in every empath. I don't think that's true. I think that when they're forced to, like I said, they don't have time to deal with it. When they're forced to numb those things, when they are forced to deal with them in other ways, then you get a little bit of that coming out. Or the switch gets flips and they cross that line into those psychopathic, sociopathic tendencies. But when does that happen? So earlier I was talking about dealing with children with behavior issues. And I had one student that I absolutely loved. I don't know what happened to this student. But he was a terror. He terrorized the classroom. He terrorized the teachers. He terrorized his parents. He terrorized his siblings. They were terrified of him. Terrified of him. And you could see in his face that he completely understood what was going on. He just found joy in it. And at some point I was talking to another teacher and they were saying, well, is there any way we can, like, anything we can do to change this? And I had to be honest. I was like, my opinion is no. I don't think there's anything we can do about this except for teach him to fake empathy. Mm. He clearly recognizes it. His reaction is wrong. That is what scares society, what scares everyone, is that he clearly sees what's going on. He clearly can feel it, but he likes it. So what do? We train him. We literally train cognitive behavior therapy. Train this kid to not behave that way, not to react that way, to react the way society expects them to react. Now, does that change the way he felt? Nope. Does that change the satisfaction he got out of it? Nope. All it did was made it so he could mask that in front of people, in front of society, not stand out, and not be kind of cast aside from his peers and family and that type of thing. And I told him that's dangerous, and eventually we're going to see him on the news. But this is what we do. When children don't show reactions the way we think they should, or they are deemed overly emotional, or whatever the case may be, instead of accepting them as they are, we try to change that behavior. We try to alter that behavior. And so it's almost like we say, we send kids to school teaching them to test. We're teaching them how society expects them to act. Doesn't mean that that's how they feel inside. Doesn't mean that that's the natural way they're going to act. Doesn't mean that once they get out on their own that that's what they're going to continue to do. It just means that we have now taught them to fool a whole bunch of people. And I'm not so sure that's a good thing. Because that's essentially the person who everyone knows that something's not quite right, but they are right enough to convince the right people that everything's okay. I'm sorry. I sure waited till you finish drinking.
I know that person.
Y'all, he has a list. He is running out of room on this paper.
I love my friend.
But you get a lot of insight.
Just saying. When you go back and watch your show, you're going to know a couple of friends too.
Oh, no, I know all these people, trust me. I've taught these people. I have, yeah.
So you're speaking from experience.
Yes.
Awesome.
Because remember, I taught from college down, and what happened was that when I taught college, when I came down to the K through 8 level, I then had these students that I had at the college level, their children. Because I taught school in the same area.
So you had to deal with the parents, and then knowing that the dumb ones had dumb kids coming.
Or not even that. Yeah, the really small ones, the really smart ones. Like, because that smart is a line as well.
Yeah. When I say dumb, you know what I mean.
Yeah. So you got to see it. It's like, oh, wait, okay. So this is what we're dealing with. Yeah. And you see it through families.
Yeah. If I had to teach the mom, I'm definitely not teaching the kids.
But I will say that this young man that I was talking about was a twin. He was a twin. He was a fraternal twin. He was a twin. His brother was an empath. His brother felt everything for everybody. If you got a paper cut, he would cry about it. If you got a paper cut, he would cry about it. And try to help you and try to fix it up. Meanwhile, his brother was sitting in the corner laughing. Empath.
Sociopath.
Same genetics.
Well, genetics split.
But same parents. Same parents, same family, same upbringing.
The genes just didn't divide the same.
Right. But as I was saying earlier, this is why these people are normally in the same families. Like, the genetic pattern is very close. I really do wonder what happened to that kid.
Which one?
The one I had, the
empath or sociopath?
The sociopath.
Yeah. You know what happened.
I don't know.
You got a pretty good idea.
He was hilarious. And he should be high school. High school. Yes. He should be high school.
How do you feel about all the kids fighting in school right now?
Which kids fighting? What school?
No. How do you feel about all? It ain't just in Georgia. It's all the schools. How do you feel about all the kids fighting in schools right now?
But that's been going on. The only reason we know so much about it is because there's camera phones.
Gotcha.
I went to school before camera phones.
Yeah, fighting every day.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing different.
Yeah,
how do you feel about it?
Now, just everybody sitting back recording it.
So how do you feel about it?
I think it's what's going to happen.
Part of growing up.
You can't put that many personalities in one place and expect everyone to get along, and then you get the herd mentality of these different cliques. So it's not going to. It's never going to. I don't think it's possible to go to a school where there is none of that. And keep in mind, I went to private school up until the 4th grade, where you had maybe 8 kids in a class at times.
I went to Catholic school and Catholic high school, okay? Do you know how hard it was to be accepted into certain cliques then?
Yeah. And
the amount of cliques there were? Look at all the cliques now.
And the different divides.
Did you want to be a teenager now?
Some kids can. Son.
Mentally, it's got to be stressing out.
My oldest son, he can navigate. He has so many different friend circles. And I don't see any of these groups. I'm wondering what the graduation party is going to be.
That's your kid, ain't that?
But not my second one.
Well, that's that shared genes.
Right. The second one. Woo! We're going to work on that. But, so it turns out, that empathy and being an empath is not only a mechanism for sharing experiences with others, but it's also a way to keep them separate. So this is why I get really frustrated with these groups about empaths, because they're like, oh, well, it's all positive and all love and light and all that, and it's not. If we don't teach these people that are empaths, like the true empaths, how to manage, they're going to burn out, and they are not going to be able to be what they are supposed to be to society. Because clearly society needs these people.
I think we can get rid of a couple cliques.
Oh!
I'll get a couple cliques to come together.
No, wait. I was going to say, how is that different from me saying remove the labels?
Yeah. I think there's some labels out there that can join together and make it a more friendly place.
I think there are too.
Yeah.
But
there's plenty of room out there for friendship.
Yeah. And there's plenty of room out there to be empathetic. But we've got to get out of this me, I've got to get to the top, screw you type society.
Like the whole rainbow thing. Remember the rainbow thing? And I'm not in the LGBTQ.
Okay.
I'm not in that world, okay? But the whole rainbow thing was about acceptance, right?
Okay.
How come you have people in the LGBT that won't accept other people? Now, and you know where I'm going. It's because they got bigger.
Oh, Lord.
Now they get a name, and you're like, well, no, I don't think we can accept you with our group. But there's this group down the road right now. No. The rainbow is about the rainbow.
So now now that gets us, oh my God, that's, and that's what I'm saying. We could talk about these things all the time, right? Because it's one of those things where, yes, everyone was about acceptance, but then it's like, okay, so where do we get our own space? And
yeah, but acceptance accepted everybody. They got so big they can't accept everybody now. So they're putting limitations on acceptance.
But they could, except that people are like, no, I don't like that. Or no, I don't agree with that. And so then we're getting these other divides within communities. And
just think of how many letters have been added on to it. It started out as LGBT.
Because everyone wants to be recognized.
Right. And every time you give another person, you're going to add another letter.
Everyone wants to be recognized. Everyone wants their own exclusive space. But then everyone wants to be accepted. And this is just, God.
Yeah, the comments, I think that's what's happening to me now. I'm burning out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and how...
I don't know what I am.
I'm sorry. After this year, after this whole COVID thing, after all the deaths, all the fighting, all of the craziness, all of the Republicans versus Democrats and vaxxers versus anti-vaxxers, and Black Lives Matter versus everything. It's with all of that. If you are a true empath, how can you not be burnt out?
Yeah, I would hate to be somebody that had the job of spreading love and peace right now.
Yep. And I will definitely say while I have the ability to be empathic, while I am that way at times, after I had children of my own, I had to put we don't count the kids at all. After I had my own children, I had to put limits on that, because if not, as a mother, I did not have the energy to come home and mother my own children. I was so burnt out from being mom to everyone else and nurturing to everyone else's kids. I no longer had it in me to take care of my own. And so I had to disconnect some of that stuff. It became a necessity. And that's one of those things where we have to also let them know not to feel guilty about that, not to feel like they're failed in some kind of way, that it's okay to have to put in those kind of blocks, because what they say, givers have to know when to stop because takers never will.
That's a fact. I saw where did I see that? I think I saw that at like a gas station. You know where it was?
Where?
It was on the tip jar. Tell me that's not a great place for that.
That's a great place. All right, everyone. Yeah, this is one of those things we could keep talking about forever, because I know all of y'all have like made notes of people that you now like taking some second guesses and third guesses. David's notes. Oh God. Yay! My website is up, so more good things coming there. We're trying to figure out how to link this whole YouTube thing, where these videos will be on YouTube for you to watch them there as well, for people who do not have access to Facebook, because I know I have a lot of listeners that just listen because they are not on Facebook. I know a lot of my clients just listen, but they're not on Facebook. So this will give you the opportunity to be able to view that. So we're working on that. Hopefully have it up next week. I know someone knows the answer to this. So we will see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. You have been listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. Love you. Bye.